Welcome back to the Global Education Report. Today, we are tackling the heavyweight champion of international education, the dream destination, the United States of America. But let's be honest, the headlines are scary. High rejection rates, soaring costs, and administrative black holes. Is the American dream still accessible for Bangladeshi students in 2026? Or is it just a fantasy? I'm joined by Zephyr, a senior strategist at IESBD. Zephyr, cut to the chase. Is it harder to get a U.S. visa now?
It's not necessarily harder, Corey, but it is infinitely smarter. The game has evolved. 10 years ago, you could walk in with a bank statement and a smile. In 2026, the U.S. consular officers have effectively become forensic accountants and career counselors rolled into one. They don't just look at how much money you have. They're obsessed with when it got there and where it came from. Let's unpack that financial aspect first, because that's where most people panic. I keep hearing about the sudden deposit trap. What exactly is that? It's the classic mistake. A student gets an I-20 that says they need $40,000 for the first year. They only have $10,000 in the bank. So 2 weeks before the visa interview, their uncle or father sells a piece of land or borrows money from a business partner and dumps 50 lakh taka into the account.
To show they have the funds.
Exactly. But to a visa officer, that is a red flag the size of a billboard. They call it window dressing. They know that money isn't stable, it's borrowed stability. If you cannot prove the source of that sudden deposit with a tax trail, a land sale deed, or a retirement letter, you are almost guaranteed a rejection under Section 214B.
So what is the winning strategy for 2026?
The strategy is sustainable income. The officer wants to know, can your sponsor actually afford to send you $20,000 or $30,000 a year without selling their house or bankrupting the family business? They look at the sponsor's income tax returns. If the annual income shown on the tax return is low, but the bank balance is huge, the math doesn't add up. The visa is denied because the financial story is fake.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not just about assets, it's about flow. Now, let's move to the room itself, the interview. I've heard it can be brutally short.
Short is an understatement. You have roughly 90 seconds to 2 minutes. That is it. You have 90 seconds to prove two very difficult things. First, that you are a bona fide student, meaning you aren't just going there to work. And second, the big one, intent to return.
Section 214B, the nightmare code. That basically means we think you're an immigrant, right?
Correct. The U.S. law presumes every student is an intending immigrant until they prove otherwise. And this is where most students fail. They give generic, robotic answers. The officer asks, "Why did you choose Arizona State University?" And the student says, "Because it has a nice campus, good ranking, and friendly professors."
That sounds like a reasonable answer to me.
It sounds reasonable, but it's wasted breath. Thousands of students say that. A winning answer in 2026 requires precision. You need to say, "I chose Arizona State because Professor Smith's research on solar energy grid optimization directly applies to the power infrastructure challenges we face in Dhaka." You have to connect the U.S. degree to a specific problem you want to solve back in Bangladesh. That proves you have a plan to come home.
But what about the gap year? A lot of Bangladeshi students take a year or two off to prepare for GREs or work. Does that look bad?
It only looks bad if it's dead time. If your gap year was spent just sitting at home, you're in trouble. But if you spent that time learning Python or working a junior role at a local firm or even doing intensive research, that's a value add.
So you have to justify every month on your CV.
Exactly. The officer is looking for a trajectory. Are you moving forward, or are you just looking for an exit strategy out of the country?
Speaking of GREs, many schools are test optional now. Can a student actually get a visa without a GRE in 2026?
This is a trap, Corey. Just because a university says it's optional doesn't mean the visa officer likes it. In a competitive market like Dhaka, a GRE score, even a modest one, is a massive credibility booster. It proves you have the academic rigor to survive a U.S. classroom. Without it, you're just another applicant in a crowded field. It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Precisely. And let's talk about the work-study balance question. Officers often ask, "Do you plan to work in the U.S.?"
And the answer should be no, right? Because they're there to study.
If you just say no and stop, it sounds like a rehearsed lie. Every student wants to work. The correct answer is acknowledging the 20-hour-a-week on-campus limit. You say, "My primary focus is my degree, which is fully funded by my father, but I am interested in on-campus teaching assistantships to gain academic experience."
You're showing you know the rules rather than just reciting a script.
Right, you're showing you're a professional.
Let's talk about family. What if the student has a brother or sister already in the US? Is that the kiss of the death for a visa?
It's not the kiss of the death, but it is a high hurdle scenario. If your sibling went there and never came back, or worse, went on a student visa and immediately applied for asylum or a green card, you are paying for their sins.
So how do you counter that?
You have to prove that your path is different. You need even stronger ties to Bangladesh. Maybe you're the only one left to manage the family estate, or you have a job offer waiting for you here. You have to acknowledge the sibling, but distance your career path from theirs.
That's a delicate balance. Now, what about the university ranking? Does going to a community college or a lower-ranked school make a rejection more likely?
It makes the bona fide student test much harder. If you're a straight A student from Notre Dame College and you're going to a random community college in the middle of nowhere, the officer's going to ask, why?
They suspect you're just buying a ticket to the US.
Exactly. If the school doesn't match your academic profile, it looks like a visa mill. You need a very specific reason for that choice, like a specialized technical program that isn't offered elsewhere.
I've noticed a lot of students doing mock interviews. Do they actually help, or do they just make students sound like robots?
Most mock interviews are terrible. They teach students to memorize answers. At IESBD, we do stress testing. We don't give you the answers. We teach you how to think. If I ask you a question you didn't prepare for, can you stay calm?
Like a surprise question about a specific module.
Exactly. If you can't name 3 courses you're taking in your first semester, you're not a student, you're a tourist.
So let's touch on the social media aspect. Do they really check your Facebook or LinkedIn?
They have the right to. In the DS-160, you have to list your social handles. If you're posting about how to stay in America forever on a public forum while telling the officer you're coming back in 2 years, well, the math is easy for them. Digital footprints are permanent, and they are searchable. People forget that. What about age? Is there an age limit for a master's or PhD? No legal limit, but there is a logic limit. If you're 35 and starting a fresh bachelor's degree, that looks suspicious. But if you're 35 and doing an executive MBA to move into a C-suite role in Dhaka, that makes perfect sense. It's all about the narrative arc.
So the why now question is just as important as the why there.
Absolutely. You have to explain why this degree is the missing piece of your puzzle right now.
We've talked a lot about the interview, but what happens after the visa-approved words are spoken?
The struggle doesn't end. We see students get their visas revoked at the airport because they can't answer basic questions from the CBP officer at the port of entry.
Wait, the visa isn't a guaranteed entry?
No, it's just a permission to apply for entry. If you arrive in New York with 3 suitcases full of cooking pots and no textbooks, the CBP might think you're moving in permanently.
That is a terrifying thought.
It's rare, but it happens to the unprepared. You have to stay in student mode until you're actually sitting in your dorm room. Zephyr, this has been an incredible deep dive. To wrap up, if you could give one golden rule for the 2026 applicant, what would it be? Be a person, not a file. The officer sees 200 files a day. They want to talk to a human being with a real dream, a real plan, and a real reason to come back. If you can show them that human side in 90 seconds, the visa is yours.
Be a person, not a file. I love that. Zephyr, thank you. For our listeners, stay tuned for our next episode on the UK's new graduate route restrictions. Until next time, good luck to everyone. We'll see you on campus.